Then come the United Kingdom, Luxembourg, and Belgium. So when people say the US is in debt to China, that's partly true, but it represents only about 2% of the total. Most of America's debt is owed to America itself. The Treasury issues bonds. Banks and funds buy them. The Federal Reserve often buys them back, creating new dollars in the process. Americans pay taxes. Those taxes fund interest payments. That interest flows into retirement and pension funds. It's a closed loop. The debt is real, but the creditor is largely a reflection of the same system. And this circular structure isn't unique to the United States. Japan lends to the US lends to Europe through the IMF. Europe lends to developing countries through the World Bank. Those countries then lend back to advanced economies by holding their reserves in Western bonds. It's a global game of hot potato, except the potato is made of promises. Everyone holds someone else's IOU. Every promise is backed by another promise. The rule is simple. No one leaves the table. But there is another layer, the most powerful one of all, the markets. Behind every government bond is a vast network of institutions, hedge funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and central banks. They decide who can borrow cheaply and who must pay a premium just to survive. When confidence disappears, currencies collapse, governments fall, and economies are rewritten overnight. Democracy decides who governs. Markets decide who survives. And the high priests of this system are the central banks. Central banks don't just manage debt, they create it. When they buy government bonds, they create new money in exchange. A liability on one balance sheet becomes an asset on another. Every dollar in circulation is someone else's debt. There is no such thing as debt-free money. For decades, this system has survived on confidence. But what happens when confidence breaks? We've seen it before. Greece, 2010. Debt became unpayable. Bond yields exploded. The IMF and the European Central Bank intervened. But the price was austerity, higher taxes, spending cuts, and mass unemployment. In Argentina, repeated defaults turned debt into a national curse. In Sri Lanka, fuel shortages and political collapse followed when the country ran out of foreign currency. When the system breaks, the creditors suddenly become visible. The IMF, rating agencies, anonymous bondholders. But then what happens? The cycle begins again. New loans replace old ones. The machine resets. Because in the 21st century, debt is not designed to be repaid. It is designed to be rolled over. Governments do not plan to eliminate their debt. This is not a conspiracy. It is policy. Debt is treated like a subscription. The real product is interest, and the global economy depends on it. The United States will never fully pay off its debt. Japan has been rolling over its debt for decades, and yet no one panics, because government debt is considered the safest collateral on earth. If the U.S. somehow paid off all its debt, the global financial system would collapse. That's why debt is never eliminated. It is sustained. But this system is not equal. Interest flows upward, from taxpayers and workers to those who hold the debt. Debt is not just a transfer between countries. It is a transfer between classes. And at the top, there is no single villain. This system includes all of us. Debt once meant bondage. Today, it means balance. But if that balance ever breaks, we will remember the truth. Debt is a promise that cannot be kept forever. If this gave you a new perspective, subscribe. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look. Every country in the world carries debt. The United States now owes over $38 trillion. the highest level in its history. The European Union carries around 14 trillion and Japan nearly 9 trillion. Even oil-rich nations and export powerhouses like Germany and China are burdened with enormous levels of debt. But here's the paradox. If everyone is in debt, who is the creditor? This is financial history AI, where money, power, and history collide. And nothing is ever as simple as it seems. Debt is not just a burden. It is the foundation of the modern world. Every war, every crisis, every rise and fall is built on this invisible scaffolding of debt. And if you follow the chain of creditors long enough, you reach an unsettling truth. The world doesn't owe money to anyone. It owes it to itself. But that doesn't mean everyone benefits equally. To understand how we reached a point where total global debt exceeds $315 trillion, nearly 3 times the size of the world economy, we have to go back to the beginning. Centuries before credit cards or digital transfers, the idea of national debt was born not on Wall Street, but in war. In 1694, England was fighting France and had run out of gold. The king turned to merchants for help. In exchange for permanent interest payments backed by future taxes, the merchants financed the crown. To manage this new system, the Bank of England was created. This was revolutionary. The state could now spend money it did not yet have. In return, lenders received something extraordinary, a promise from the government. That promise could be bought, sold, and traded. This was the birth of the government bond, the seed of the modern financial system. France copied it. The Netherlands refined it. The newly independent United States adopted it to fund its revolution and westward expansion. National debt was no longer a sign of failure, but a measure of credibility. The ability to borrow became the ability to rule. Empires once conquered land to extract gold. Now they issued bonds to extract interest. The battlefield became the balance sheet. Fast forward 3 centuries, and debt has become the world's largest export. The United States owes $38 trillion. Japan owes over $9 trillion, and global debt increases by $1 trillion every 100 days. Everyone is in debt. Everyone is a creditor. Through taxes, savings, and pension funds, every citizen is both borrower and lender. So who holds the other end of the rope? Let's start with the United States because its debt isn't just national, it's global. About half of the $38 trillion is publicly held debt, meaning it's owed to investors rather than government agencies. Roughly 2/3 of those investors are American. Banks, pension funds, mutual funds, insurance companies, and the Federal Reserve. The remaining 1/3, about $9 trillion, is held by foreign governments. Japan is the largest holder with about $1 trillion, followed by China with around $800 billion.